In section 4.3, we're going to talk about a special type of linear equation called direct variation. Direct variation. In words, here's what it means. And by the way, this is your key idea. Your key idea is this, in words, and you need to write this down. When two quantities, x and y, are proportional, the relationship can be represented by the direct variation equation. So here's what we need to circle, underline, but make sure we understand this and understand it 100%. The equation is y equals mx. The equation is y equals mx. That is called direct variation. Where m is the constant of proportionality, otherwise called the slope. So if you just know that m is the slope, you'll be fine. So y equals, for example, 3x, 3 is your m, 3 is your slope. Now, your graph. The graph of y equals mx is a line with a slope of m. Once again, the number, the coefficient of x, the number in front of x is your slope. And that passes through the origin. It has to cross through 0, 0. So if you actually had a quick graph, which I want you to draw this, we have our x-axis and our y-axis. We have 0, 0. It has to go through 0, 0. And it goes through any other point. We're going to say 1, m. M is your slope. If you actually find 1, and then however many you go up for y, that's going to be your m. That's going to be your slope. So now if we look at this, I'm just going to draw a few of these. You don't have to draw these, just watch. These are all examples of direct variation. They are all y equals, and then your m and your x. So, what's your slope here? Your slope is 3. Here your slope would be -5. Here your slope would be 1/2. All of these represent slope. So now let's do an example. For example number 1, it says the cost y in dollars for x gigabytes of data on an internet plan is represented by y equals 10x. Graph the equation and interpret the slope. So tomorrow when you come into my class, or whenever you watch this, and when you come into my class on Monday, I will be asking to see these problems written down. So make sure you take the time to write these down. All we have to do is graph this and interpret the slope. It is nothing different than what you've done before with the t-table. Except now, you are going to have more information behind it, and you have to understand what we're doing. So let's start with your equation, y equals 10x. I just want you to graph it. Just make a t-table, and let's just plug in 0, 1, and 2. So if we plug in 0, 10 times 0 is 0, 10 times 1 is 10, 10 times 2 is 20. So if we graph this, now we are talking about gigabytes, which is x, and the cost y, both of which have to be positive. So there's no reason that I need to actually graph anything in quadrant 2, 3, or 4. So I'm only graphing quadrant 1. My x-axis only has to go up to 2. My y-axis I'm going to count by tens, 10, 20, 30. So if I graph this, 0, 0, 1, 10, 2, 20. This is a line. However, I do not draw an arrow down here because I cannot have negative gigabytes or negative dollars. So there's my graph. Here's the most important part. Interpret the slope. You remember, slope is rise over run. Rise over run. Your rise, if you graph this, make sure you put labels. This is cost in dollars. X is the number of gigabytes. So rise is your Y, run is your X. So look at what you have here. Rise, run. So what's your label? Your label would be 10 dollars per gigabyte. Because slope is 10, that's m. Your slope is 10, so if you interpret the slope, that would mean it's $10 per gigabyte. And that would be your answer. Example number 2. The weight y of an object on Titan, one of Saturn's moons, is proportional to the weight x of the object on Earth. An object that weighs 105 pounds on Earth would weigh 15 pounds on Titan. A. Write an equation that represents this situation. So, here is what we have to use. We have to use direct variation. So your direct variation is this. Y equals mx. If we use y equals mx, it says right in the problem what our point is. An object that weighs 105 pounds on Earth would weigh 15 pounds on Titan. So we are going to write that as the ordered pair 105, 15. This is your x, this is your y. The only thing that you ever need, for an equation is your m for direct variation. All I need to do is find m. So here is what you do. You know your x, you plug it in. You know your y, plug it in. So let's plug it in. 15 equals m times x. Now solve the equation for m. This is 7th grade review. The opposite of times 105 is divided by 105. That gives me m equals 15 divided by 105. If you simplify, that can be simplified by 15. Divide by 15, divide by 15. You get 1/7. So m is 1/7. So I take the m. I plug it back into y equals mx. So your equation would be y equals 1/7 x. There's part A. Part B. Part B says this. How much would a chunk of ice that weighs 3.5 pounds on Titan weigh on Earth? So, right up here, Earth was x. So x is Earth, y is Titan. So x and y, here pounds is Titan. So I use my equation. Y equals 1/7 x. Titan, if you look, is y. So I plug the 3.5 in for y. 3.5 equals 1/7 x. To get rid of a times 1/7, you should remember you have to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 7/1. So that would give you the equation x equals 7 times 3.5, which is 24.5 pounds. So on Earth, the chunk of ice would weigh 24.5 pounds. Number 3. The daily wage Y in dollars of a factory worker is proportional to the number of parts X assembled in a day. A worker who assembles 250 parts in a day earns $75. Step 1. We need to write an equation. So here's what we do in step 1. Just write an ordered pair. All you do is write an ordered pair. It says right here, X is how many parts, Y is dollars. X is the number of parts, Y is the number of dollars. So X is the number of parts, which is 250. Y is dollars, which is 75. This is your X, this is your Y. I now use my equation, Y equals mx. I have to find m. So I take the x value, and I plug it in for x. I take the y value, I plug it in for y. My equation would be 75 equals m times 250, or 250m. Now I have to get rid of my times 250 by dividing by 250. So m is going to be 75 divided by 250. What number goes into 75 and 250? That should be fairly easy. It'd be 25. 75 divided by 25 is 3. 250 divided by 25 is 10. Therefore, I just found my slope, which is 3/10. So I take my 3/10 and I plug it back in here. So that would give me y equals 3/10 x. That is your answer to part A. Part B says, how much does a worker earn who assembles 300 parts in a day? So let's look at 300. Remember, once again, it says assembled is x. So assembled is 300, so that means 300 is x. Find y. So I take the 300, plug it in here. You should be able to do most of this in your head. 300 times 3 is 900. 900 divided by 10. 900 divided by 10 is 90. So y equals 90. If you remember, y right here says dollars. So how much do they earn? They earn $90 in a day.